Welcome, everyone. This is your host, Shailesh, once again bringing you live a series of real connections with real people and real talk. So, this series today, we are going to have a beautiful conversation with one of the realest person, but also how person can be motivational. So, because we are all humans, but we motivate, we influence. And today, we are going to talk to this amazing person that we have invited as a guest speaker, Sarah Wyeth. Sarah Wyeth is a local, a Kiwi, and but today I have this pleasure to invite her to my episode of Real Connections, where we always bring real people, but also we always talk real. So it's a real experiences shared by real people with real wisdom. So welcome, Sarah, for this beautiful episode of Life Journey of Yours. And we're going to get into that soon. But let's tell me something about you a little bit, because I know you are a motivational speaker, but you are a coach of women's, and you can be coach of a lot of things that I have understood from your bio. So tell, take us down first a little bit of your bio, and then we will dive into the real topic, which is your life journey. Well,
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be here. Um, so I am a woman's motivational speaker and coach. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I've trained in about 8 different modalities. So unlike your one-trick pony that some other practitioners are, I look at the
mm,
person as a complete whole person and try and work on a neurosomatic approach. So I use things like hypnotherapy, NLP, positive
wow.
psychology, EFT, tapping, nutrition and exercise, pretty much anything you can think of to bring the client a complete package is
Mm,
how I work with people to get the best results for them. Um, I have been in the coaching industry probably for about 25 years. I've been in high performance sales as well for about 25 years, and my specialist topics are motivation, burnout, and
mm,
coping with being neurally diverse.
wow. There's a lot to talk. We'll have to go through your beautiful journey, what you are today, because accomplishing, doing things that matters to all our human aspects that we need every single day and every single moment to not just breathe, but to thrive and to have that energy, to have that motivation to move forward. And that's where your expertise, skills that you have developed, that you came through. But let's now get back into that. How did you come here so far and with so much? I bet you must have also challenges all around your journey. So I'm going to take the down memory lane. What was Sarah like as a child? What was Sarah like as a kid? What was her mindset at that time? And how does she, see herself at that time to navigate her dreams and her motivation? Who was that? So let's start from there.
So I grew up in a smallish town in Dunedin in the South Island.
Mhm.
And basically I had two brothers. I'm a middle child, so the middle children out there will relate to this one. Um, Typically we try and sort of make our own way in the world anyway. I guess I was always kind of full of energy,
Yeah.
lively, never stopped
Mm.
talking. Never really felt like I fitted in though. And I think this is inherently something people with ADHD do experience.
Right.
Um, I was always the sort of person who would try everything and stick at very little.
Mm.
Always had comments on my school report saying, "Oh, clearly very bright, but doesn't like to apply herself.
Right.
Should spend more time working, less time talking."
Mm.
Never really got in trouble in any great
Mm.
way, but just never really loved school so much. I found
Mm.
relationships with people strange in that um, I think I was quite an old soul, and I feel
Wow.
like if someone had been here before, I was definitely one of them.
Mm.
Um, and so for me, like, I don't really, never really got into the catty, girly rubbish that lots of teenage girls get into. I was more interested in my horses and hanging out with my mates, who actually mostly happen to be guys because they're less complicated. Um, so, so I had lots of
We'll
male
dive
friends,
into that.
and I used to, hang out and teach them to ride my horse and just
Mhm.
not get involved in the girly, silly stuff that young girls get involved in. So,
Right,
yeah,
right,
and
right.
I was a fitness fanatic. Still am to a degree. Yeah, I had a pretty good upbringing, very privileged to have wonderful parents.
Mm,
Um, I guess like most people that are a little bit different.
mm,
I've always been a high achiever in different ways. So while academically at school I managed to pass and pass quite well with very little effort, once I hit the workforce, I became a force to be reckoned with.
right.
I was a very high achiever in pretty much every job that I've been in. Um, Tell me I can't do something and watch me kick its ass, basically. I was
Right.
very good at sales and have been in a high performing sales role for about the last 15 years.
Mm,
So, and before that, in key account, Australasian key account management roles, and all sorts of jobs like that, where understanding relationships and how to work with people has been important. Um, those high pressure roles, however, also
mm,
caused a significant demise in my health, not once, but
mm,
twice.
yeah.
Um, wasn't smart enough to learn the first time, which was a bit of a shame. So in my 20s, I had really, really severe bowel problems and was in and out of hospital more times than I care to remember in a year. I think I would have been in and out
Mm,
probably 2 or 3 times a month for 6 months straight.
right.
I ended up having non-specific inflammatory bowel disease because
Mm,
back in those days they didn't really know. This was 28 years ago. They didn't really know so much as they know now about
mm,
various things, and it turns out down the track they worked out I'm actually a celiac, so I'm allergic to gluten and wheat. Um, so for me, I was unfortunately they didn't really wasn't really such a thing back then. So I was busily in hospital, filled up with drugs, and still eating bread.
mm.
Oh, the irony. Yeah, so I got really, really sick, and then they just put me on a lot of medication for that. A lot
Right,
of medication.
right, right.
Anyway, about probably 9 to 12 months later, I started to come right. And then
Mm-hmm.
continued on my merry way with, buying houses at a young age, working in a high pressure job, feeling like I had something to prove to the world and everyone around me, and kept up at that. In my early 30s, I had my first child,
Mm-hmm.
and unlike most people who are sensible enough to leave work and then have the baby, I decided that it would be better to have the baby and leave work. Um, so my child, my first child arrived 5 weeks premature,
Mm-hmm.
and good way to get out of having to go to a baby shower that you didn't want. So that was a bonus. Um, so yeah, he arrived 5 weeks premature, and all he did was scream and vomit for the first about 10 months of his life. He had quite severe reflux. Can't imagine where any child would develop that, right? With a
Mm-hmm.
mum that's highly stressed through pregnancy and then still highly stressed after pregnancy and used to being a control freak and not
Yeah.
being able to control anything. So that was a bit of an epic adventure into postnatal depression,
Mm,
which was not really a barrel of laughs, if I'm honest.
mm,
Went back to work part-time, contracting from home, and then had the second child 18 months later, and a completely different child, but great test of strength, power, and patience, I think, as any parent would testify to. Boys were in my sole care with my husband, but he was at work until the youngest was about 3, at which point my husband and I had a role swap, and I went to work full time and he
what?
stayed at home with the kids. Um, so that was great until
Mm,
the stress and the pressure got a bit much, and then I started having joint problems, and the joint problems got so bad that I was struggling to move around. Um, it was pretty horrendous. I spent, I don't know, 2 or 3 years maybe on immunosuppressant drugs,
right.
which they do give people for cancer.
Mm,
The particular drug I was on the highest dose they could give me at the time, and nothing was cutting the mustard. There were days when I literally could not walk properly. All I could do was shuffle.
mm-hmm.
And still working in a high stress environment, didn't really think about the contributing factors to maybe why I was in such a state until it got to the point where the immunosuppressants on their own were no longer working, so they decided in their infinite wisdom that they should put in some anti-inflammatory drugs and some other painkillers. And when they did that, my kidney and liver decided they did not want to play this game anymore,
Mm.
and they decided that they would not like to work. Thank you very much. At
Wow.
which point the doctor gave me a ring and said, "Oh, by the way, you have to stop all the drugs today, or you're going to have kidney and liver failure. And if
Just
that
like,
happens, it's not reversible."
yeah, to all the listeners, I can see, then I can feel that just like what you have achieved so far and so many things you're doing, you also have been through so many physical challenges and mental challenges across. And this probably started at what age you think the health issues started or the bowel started? What was the age like at that time?
To be honest, I
Mm.
actually think I recall having food issues and problems from the time I was really small. When I
Oh,
was
okay.
about 3 or
Mm.
4,
Mm.
I remember we were sitting around the dining room table, and I used to be a really fussy eater.
Mm.
And I remember mum and dad trying to make me eat a sausage, and I wouldn't eat this bloody sausage. And instead of eating it, I hyperventilated and fell off the chair from
Oh my
fainting.
God.
Now this used to be my go-to move when I didn't when I didn't want to eat something.
Mm. Mm.
But your body knows the score and it keeps the score. So
True.
the reason I didn't want to eat that was probably, most likely in hindsight, because it wasn't actually making me feel well.
Mm.
So I've always had this underlying, much like my hyperactive personality, I have a hyperactive immune system. And
Mm.
that's been sort of the root of all of the issues.
Mm. So
So
take
if
me, yeah, this is good to know. However, the way you dealt and how you are been, your body and your mental side of it, what were the challenges in terms of your mindset? Because when you go through physical stress or physical trauma or physical regular ongoing thing, then your mind also comes, mental aspect comes into the picture. How do you
mm,
deal with that mental side of it, and what did you do to really focus on what you wanted to do rather than going in the wrong way or the direction where you will never come back out of it, because
I think
how,
that's a really good question. And the first time that I had essentially what you'd call burnout with the bowel problems,
yep.
I felt like I survived it, and I didn't really understand the message from the universe at the time. I think probably wasn't mature enough or in touch with my own
On.
body well enough to understand. And the irony of that is at the time I was actually studying to be a personal trainer.
Oh,
So
wow.
you'd think you'd know, wouldn't you? And
Exactly.
sometimes you know, but you don't do.
But
So
it didn't know. Mm.
the second time it happened, however, the day that I got the call from the doctor, and I was standing in the office, and she said, "You have to stop taking all the medication, or you're going to have irreversible kidney and liver damage. Like,
Wow.
there's no weaning off drugs," which is, if you know anything about immune suppressant drugs,
Yeah, yeah,
you can't just stop taking them because your immune system goes,
yeah.
"Oh, it's party time." But I had to. And so at that point, I did the giant get
Mm, mm.
stuffed to the medical profession and took my health back, and I took my mindset back. And in 10 weeks, I went from being incredibly unwell to probably the fittest and healthiest I've been in my life.
So tell me, how did you manage to keep that positive mind? Because all the listeners might be thinking that, oh, my gosh, she's gone so many things. How did she keep up with that mindset, which is quite positive, to keep doing things that what she has done today? How did you change that mindset? Was it there was a help from the surroundings, environment, or did you take any help, or you were just like confident enough to know what you wanted to do? How was that transition and keeping that flow of mind, intact
I
with the
think
positive?
yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think inherently I'm quite a positive person.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
really don't do being told what to do. So if you tell me
Wow.
what to do, I'm going to do the opposite just to spite you to a degree.
That's nice.
Um, which
Good.
some would consider a personality flaw. However,
Mm,
those of us that are neurally diverse will tell you that actually we're driven by an intrinsic
mm,
motivation to do the
mm,
stuff that really interests us. So there's a level of urgency or a level of interest that's higher than anything else on the in the current arena, then that's what we're going to go for first. So for me, the second time it happened, I had children.
Mm.
I didn't have a choice. I had to get well. I have kids I needed to look after. And I
Right.
realized at that point it wasn't about me anymore. And
Right.
for some people, they can get well by
Mm.
realizing it's
Mm.
for them that they need to do it. But other people's motivation needs to be extrinsic, being outside of themselves. And mine was, well, if I can't do it for myself, at least I can do it for my kids so they've got a mum.
Right.
And the turning point for me was when my husband said to me one morning,
Mm-hmm.
I lay in bed last night wondering if you were going to wake up or not.
Mm.
And I thought,
Wow.
ooh,
That was.
that's not cool. He was busy lying in bed every night wondering if his wife was going to die.
Mm.
And that's a pretty horrendous thing to live with. So if you can't
Exactly.
do that for the man that you love and the children that you love,
So true.
then when are you ever going to learn?
Mm.
And so I think for me, it was about understanding that there you don't always need to do stuff for yourself, but there's always somebody that needs you. And
Yeah.
whether it's a child or a spouse or a parent or
Or yeah.
anything outside of
Mm.
yourself, to look to something else to find motivation for the interim,
Mm.
if
Mm.
that's enough to get you off the floor and get you moving, then that's all it takes. Because eventually, when you take those first few steps, you then realize, oh
Mm.
shit, I was actually that sick. Because more often than not, when you're in it, you have no idea how
Yeah.
unwell you are until you start to get better. And
Yeah.
then you go, huh, actually,
Mm.
that was really miserable. I didn't enjoy feeling like a sick victim bastard. That was
Mm.
horrible. Because you get that whole victim mentality. And
That's right. That's right.
the scariest thing about that is, and a lot of people will not admit this, but the worst thing about being chronically ill, or the best thing maybe, is that people ask you how you are.
Yeah.
And when you think about the flip side of that, that's attention,
Mm.
which you might have been craving and you've gone the wrong way about getting it.
Mm. Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that people giving a shit if you're okay, much and all as you might get sick of talking about it,
Yeah.
it means they're actually interested in you.
Mm.
Which, if you've always been like a person who's,
Yeah.
been a middle child or just felt like the universe wasn't quite yours,
Mm. Yeah.
maybe that negative pattern is actually serving you in a different way. So it's understanding how to serve those parts of your body and your mind that need that attention in a healthier way.
So did you had any siblings, Sarah?
I have an older brother and a younger brother.
Oh, great. Okay. So then how do
Mm,
you feel? So you got two boys, two brothers.
yeah.
You are the middle one. And do you think that there was that responsibility or sense of responsibility being a woman that you realized or recognized earlier to keep your mind positive or to make that decision for your own that I am responsible for so many things and I am responsible? Or was it like, because most of the people, 99% subconsciously they behave and they tend to think that, okay, now I'm not going to do the hard yard. I'm just going to do what is convenient to me. But
Yeah.
then here you are taking those hard yards, whether your kids, whether your husband, and then thinking, oh, this is my responsibility. And what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? Otherwise, there are people who just don't care about consciously. They just do
Mm.
subconsciously. They never even think of what you have thought about it. How did you make those kind of, responsible, we call it, or is it a human journey that you realize that no matter we are here, we have got kids, we have got husband, we've got mother, we got, someone to look after as a human first and foremost. So our responsibility automatically becomes not as a gender, but as a responsible human. How do
Yeah,
you
I
see
think
that? Yeah.
I think there's two parts to that. So one
Yeah.
is I didn't have a terrible childhood. I won the
Okay.
parent lottery. So, and it's really funny because people think because you're a therapist, you must have had some horrendous upbringing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
sad, and fortunately I didn't. And I know a lot of people didn't. I really have a lot of empathy for that situation. But my parents were incredibly good role models. They were very nurturing, they were kind, they worked hard. We never needed or wanted for anything, and not in a bratty way, but in a way where we
Mm.
were so lucky. And I see that with so many of my clients now. I realize just how lucky we actually were. I think because my mum is such a nurturing, kind,
Mm.
caring, positive person, it just, to a degree, it rubbed off. But
Mm.
also, she was the mum that did everything. So she did all the
Right.
cooking, all the cleaning, all of that stuff. So yes, there's absolutely an inherent
Mm.
um, responsibility. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that your belief systems about who you are in the planet, how you got here, what you're supposed to do with your life, all come from your childhood. And
Yes.
all of these beliefs that you carry are embedded in your brain before you're 7.
Mm.
Now, when you think about that, if you grew up in the best household in the world, then
Mm.
obviously you're going to have some pretty great belief systems about love and connection and finances and all that sort of stuff. Like that sets you up for a much easier journey than life than somebody who's grown up in an abusive household with alcoholics or drug addicts, right?
Mm. Mm.
Because they're going to
Mm.
think that's normal and that poor relationships are
Correct.
normal.
Correct.
So that's not to say you can't change your beliefs, though. And what
Yeah.
I find in clinic is that when we talk to people who are having issues as adults, it
Mm.
comes back to, well, what did you get modeled for you as a child? Because that's how your view of the
Mm.
universe is formed.
Mm.
So for me, my view of the universe was, in fact, that yes, mums were supposed to be there for their kids, and yes, mums are supposed to be the ones that look after everyone, and yes, mums are supposed to be healthy and be able to do all of the things that mums are supposed to do.
Mm.
So you're quite right. When I was looking
Mm.
to the people around me to look for that, it's probably because my childhood showed me
Yeah.
that actually I was supposed to be that person for my kids. And our kids are great boys. They're mid to late teens, both of them,
Mm.
and they're pretty good kids.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
they're kind and they work hard and they're just not idiots, really. And
Sure.
I think that's a win. You know,
Yeah.
they have great manners, they've got great sense of humour. One's a professional actor,
Oh,
the other one
wow.
would like to be a one would like to be a professional NBA player, but he's a wee way off that. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, he's only about 4 inches too short currently. But yeah, I think, like at the end of the day, your job as a mum is to grow a good human, right?
So true.
It's
So true.
the aim of parenting isn't about whose kid's going to play in the NBA or whose kid's going to be on Hollywood screens
Absolutely.
or who's going to earn the
Absolutely.
most money. It's who's going to produce a human that
Yeah.
understands humanity enough to be compassionate and empathetic, to create connections, and to make other people's lives better.
So according to you, what does it takes, like in your journey, since you saw your life, the circumstances, the environment that you grew up in, and if I have to ask you this, like, okay, with now your kids also growing up with you, do you think that this plays an important role, or you can, as you rightly said, that you can also change your goals and change your paths, even though your circumstances, environment may not be ideal for you to achieve, but still you are the one who is driving to change things. What do you think about these aspects when you look at back yourself? Like you become now a coach, an NLP, you are also an advocate for the ADHD and other things and everything that you do, multiple things you do. Obviously, that means you have created a own path for yourself, irrespective of you didn't had any experience behind you or what they call it, inheritance behind you, but you created. How you feel this creation when it compares with what you get something in inheritance, but then you don't create, but you just follow or stabilize certain things that you receive? Do you think that creation is the most important aspect of a human when you look back yourself and you look back how much you have created or what all you have created?
I think it depends on uh, your philosophical view about the universe, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
So obviously some people believe in God, some people believe in spirits, some
exactly.
people believe in the universe, some people believe
Yeah,
that we're sent here for a reason, some people have no idea why they're here and they don't really care, they just want to bide their time.
yeah.
So my my philosophy on that is that we're all sent here for something. Now, I'm not saying by whom or for what purpose, other
Yep.
than you're here to complete some type of mission or journey.
Mm.
Now, some people are sent here to be in service, and some
Yeah.
people are sent here to lead. Some people are sent here to do both, and some people are sent here to,
To receive.
nurture and be kind and whatever else, and to receive, right? So it's
Yeah.
all like a symbiotic relationship
Mm.
around
True.
how the universe should operate as a whole, given
Mm.
the perfect circumstances.
Yeah.
Yes, shit gets in your way. That happens. I'm not saying I'm perfect. There are days
Mm.
I scream at my children and I look like a screaming banshee.
Mm. Yeah.
But as a whole, like I
Yeah.
think I'm in my core purpose in life is to help people have better lives. And
Mm.
how I do that doesn't entirely matter,
Mm.
but for me, if it means getting you to have an awareness about the things in your life that maybe you might want to change
Mm.
and how I can help you to change them, or how I can teach you to do it yourself,
Mm.
then that's way more of a contribution than doing it for you.
True. I absolutely agree with that 100%. So, as a child, you grew up, as a teenager, you grew up with certain mindset. Did you had any kind of big dream as we normal humans have? Oh, I want to do
Oh
this. I want to
no.
achieve this. Tell me about that, Sarah.
Uh,
You had a colorful
well,
journey. How did you
yeah,
make this so colorful?
I actually wanted to be a well, I had two things actually. One was I wanted to be a veterinarian, and
Oh,
unfortunately, I never made the grades. It
right.
turns out, though, that my IQ was actually really high, and it wasn't that I couldn't have academically done it. It's just that at that time when I was at school, education was taught in a very linear fashion, and it
Mm.
wasn't really designed for people that were neurally diverse. So, whilst I was very bright, I didn't academically do well enough to get into vet school. So that kind of crushed my little dreams and hopes.
Mm.
And my my second thing, which is kind of hilariously funny in hindsight, was that I wanted to be an actor and a singer. And I wasn't really talented enough at either, to be honest. So my son
So,
got all the acting genes, like he got mine and everyone else's who's ever
exactly.
been in our family
Uh-huh.
lineage. And the singing thing, well, it's okay, but I wouldn't give Taylor Swift a run for her money or anyone that can actually sing more than,
Yeah.
average in church.
So, how do you think self-rejection plays an important role for all the listeners who are listening? Everybody has got a life journey and everybody, but then you had not one but twice, okay, two dreams shattered or not shattered, but didn't quite do well. But your mind did not change, or you did not get into that depression or suppression mode. You still went on to do different things. And how important is this? Like a human journey is not designed for doing just one thing or two thing, right? And I want you to highlight on this, like how important it is for a human to get self-rejected by yourself or by someone. Doesn't matter, you still have got the capacity and capability to do a lot of things. How do you see this aspect of your
I,
life?
yeah, I think that's your perception of rejection, really. So,
Mm.
in any given circumstances, you can perceive the outcome to be however you want it to be. Like
Mm.
you could say something really horrendous to me, and the first thing I'm going to do is turn that around in my mind and go, he must be having a really bad day. I wonder what's going on for him. Not, why
Mm.
did you say that to me? You're such a bleep, 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 right? Because in my mind, I know that your anger and your frustration is
Yeah,
your behavior, not
that's
something
right.
I've done.
That's right.
So, in terms of rejection, same sort of thing applies. Sometimes stuff just isn't meant for you, and that's okay.
Mm.
Like sometimes you're just actually not that good at it, and it's probably not your calling. And whilst it's really great that you enjoy it as a passion, maybe it's not your life's purpose. And
Mm.
it's okay to keep looking. I think a lot of societies are brought up where the expectations of parents on their kids to be successful at something or
Yeah.
to do something is really, really high. And
Mm.
actually, there's quite a famous I can't think who it was now. It's quite a famous Indian man, actually, and he was
Mm.
training as a doctor, and he got through to the fifth year of medical school and turned around and said to his mum and dad, "I'm not going to be a doctor."
Right.
I might just swap to law. So then he did law. He's not
Mm,
even working in law now. He's making a lot of money, like
mm,
nine figures a year, kind of a lot of money,
mm.
billions a year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the point was that his parents were so cross with him because their expectation was that he was going to be a doctor, and this was from a very young age. But my
Mm,
parents never had that expectation of me. In fact, an interesting aside to that is when the kids were little and we used to have in New Zealand they have this thing called plunket and it's for new
oh yeah.
mums and you kind of go to coffee group and you all sit around everyone's talking about various things and the plunket nurse says to everybody, oh, now what would you like your kids to do when they grow up? And
Mm,
all of these mums are sitting here saying all these things like, oh, but I'd like them to be a doctor, or I'd like them to do this, that, the other, blah, blah, blah. They all go around the circle. They're talking about careers and pathways and traveling and whatever else. And they get to me and they said, and Sarah, what would you like for your kids when they grow up? I said, I'd
mm.
just like them to be happy.
Yeah, so
And I
true.
think everyone thought, oh, what's wrong with her?
Mm.
But the reality is that people need to find their own way.
Mm.
And it's okay to fail. Like we make this big deal out of failure, and
Yeah, we
failure is
do.
not a bad thing. It's a learning experience, right? So
Yeah,
you can never progress if you don't fail. I've
yeah.
failed more things than most people have even started
But
because I
I think
try
the
stuff.
acceptance of what you do and
Hmm.
rejections or whatever, but acceptance is very important to move on and to create more. I
But
think
just because I failed, it doesn't make me a bad person. It's not saying there's
exactly.
anything wrong with me, but
No,
I've
you're
learned to
right.
detach that
Mm,
from my self-esteem.
mm, mm.
So my self-esteem does not rely on you accepting me for who I am,
Mm.
and it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
rely on me succeeding at specific things for me to still feel good about myself.
Also, like, I always say that, what's meant to be will always find its own way. So you may
Hmm.
chase a lot of things and you may not get those things when you chase. But then something comes along out of nowhere and you feel good about it that, oh, I never expected. But then at that time you want to claim that, oh, this is what I expected. No, this is what you didn't expect, but you got it, basically. And that's very refreshing and interesting to understand. And as you rightly said, there is nothing that if I don't achieve this, if I don't become that, if I don't, but expectations are too high for people. And that's what is killing the whole system currently.
The other thing is, like, you can open the door to the universe to provide for you by just moving forward, right? It's not necessarily going to give you exactly what you ask for. It may give you nothing like what you thought you needed, but it will always be the experience that you need. And sometimes when you open to the door to the universe and say, "Hey, universe, come on, I'm trying, like I'm moving forward, I'm making all these efforts," left field, something will come in and go, "Hey, what about this?" And if
Mm,
you aren't open to the opportunities that present themselves when they do,
mm.
how do you know that that wasn't the one thing
That's
that
right.
could have changed your life? Because you don't know.
That's right.
You think of all the people that have gone to buy lotto tickets, right? So think about this. You're at the supermarket, everyone's shopping, and you see the lotto counter and you think, I won't
Yeah.
buy a lotto ticket today. Do you think if they studied all the famous people, well, not all the famous people, but all the people that have won lotto over time, do you think they're all habitual ticket buyers or not? Because I bet they're not. And I bet that
Mm,
one day they were in the supermarket or going past the lotto shop and they saw it was like a reasonable sized Powerball and they thought, I've got a bit of spare money this week, I'll buy a lotto ticket.
mm, mm. True.
But had they not done that, they'd never have won.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
how do you know that the next thing that just pops up isn't going to be the thing that'll change your life forever?
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
have to be open to the possibility it could happen, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's like watching a movie and you don't know what's the next scene going to come through.
Mm,
And you feel always excited to watch the next scene, next scene, next scene. And this is how our life is, really speaking, to be honest. And that's how we have
mm.
to entertain ourselves, but also enjoyable for ourselves and for our mind to move and to thrive and to grow, is to have lots of uncertainties to accept those uncertainties. I personally feel that's really, for me, uncertainty is good. It's great because if I
The
know
quicker you
the,
can accept that, the better. Like the quicker that you can be really comfortable with being uncomfortable, the more
yeah,
your life will change fast.
I agree, 100%. So, Sarah, this is something amazing that we are discussing today. And now tell us something about the what you are now. How did you come this far in terms of when you look back now that you are a coach, you are an NLP, you are motivational, and you're focused on women's. Is it something that you are doing it out of your own kind of resonating experiences that you had, that now you are giving back to the community or to the humanity and to the women that you feel are definitely will be benefiting out of your own journey and experience that you can give them? How do you see this at this point of your life? What you are
Yeah, so
doing
I
is.
think for me, I'm primarily a clinical hypnotherapist that uses all of the other techniques in with that. And so the coaching and the NLP and the tapping and the positive psychology and all the other modalities I bring in to what I do with clients
Mm-hmm.
is what worked for me. Like, I like science. If there's no science, I'm not interested. And when I say science, I just want to see some research studies. I want to know that there's no reason it wouldn't work other
Mm-hmm.
than there's 50 million reasons it won't work. So I want to know, is there some science to back up the neural pathways doing X, Y, Z? Is there some roots in Chinese medicine or anything else that shows that yes, some studies have been done and this stuff definitely works? Because I don't
Mm-hmm.
like wasting time on things that aren't going to work. And I also don't want to waste people's time by selling them pipe dreams that aren't going to be effective.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the skill in coaching and therapy is being able to connect with the client well enough to understand what the root problem is, even when that's not what they're necessarily telling you is wrong,
Yeah.
and then using those tools to produce the outcome. So for me, hypnotherapy was a game changer and still remains so to this day. And I do use all of the techniques I work with clients on and all of the techniques I teach.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was that on its own, hypnotherapy is very effective, but
Mm-hmm.
whilst it removes the subconscious blocks in the mind, it doesn't actually remove the negative stuck energy from the body. And that's where I started to getting into the tapping and doing stuff with exercise. Because actually, sometimes there's just like that negative energy that sits in the body needs to be released somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the Chinese medicine, like using herbs and all those sorts of things, and using pressure release techniques, acupressure points, all that sort of stuff. So effective for giving you a complete resolution out the other end.
Wow. Well, 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 this is beautiful. I'm going to come to this final segment where I really want to understand and to the all the listeners that when they are listening to your this beautiful, amazing life journey, what's your message to all the listeners who are listening currently when it comes to life journey, what you have discovered, uncovered so far, and moving forward, you will be going through all of that. How important is it in terms of every day-to-day living as a humanity aspect or as a human aspect that you, when you look back now, that, okay, I've been through, so like you have physical challenges, you have mental challenges, you have every challenges, but you kept on with the positive mind frame and you kept on doing things that still date and even moving forward. How do you see, and what's your message to all the listeners that in life, what is your one kind of message that you would like to give? That we receive and we gave so many things in one journey, but then what is our really vision or purpose or goal? We call all of that, we can say, this is my goal, this is my vision, whatever it is. However, we live every single moment and we breathe every single moment. So, how do you see, and a message point of view, what message would you would like to give to all the listeners after looking at your own journey and coming through now at this stage and moving forward?
Well, I think for me,
Because I know
like,
you said one thing was the positive, and you were always positive, and that's something that not everybody has. Not everybody has got that conscious belief or a system in there embedded. But as you also said, you can still change from nothing to everything. So, in that context, what will be your message?
Everything you do is a choice.
Oh,
Everything that
wow.
comes to you is a choice. You can choose
Mm-hmm.
to evolve or you can choose to repeat. And if you choose to repeat, you will get the same outcomes you've always got from the same things you've always done with the same people you've always had. The choice is yours. You have the power to change anything and everything in your life. And yes, some of it's going to suck and some of it's going to be bloody hard. But
Mm,
usually, at the other end of it, becomes some
mm,
level of contentment and insight or opportunities that make it worthwhile. And the struggle's there for everybody. Like, nobody's greatness comes without struggle. You never ever hear of a single person who's ever
mm,
done anything worthwhile in their life that hasn't had some level of discomfort, right?
mm,
And
mm.
some people need the discomfort to move, and
Yeah.
other people are smart enough to listen to other people's stories and go, oh, shouldn't do that. That'd be dumb.
Mm, mm.
So you're never too fat, you're never too old, and you're never too stupid.
Wow. So choice. Choice is your main
Totally
ingredient,
a
huh,
choice.
Sarah?
Yep, 100%. You choose. And you need to choose you because
Right.
no one else is going to do that for you.
Excellent. What a powerful message. What a motivational. This is what all the listeners, this is all about, when we bring speakers, but this is speakers like Sarah who can really motivate, not just motivate, actually tell you the truths and the facts of our life, that we all have choices, but we ignore. We turn a blind eye thinking that we can follow someone else or we can do what others are doing. But no, you are the only one. You have the choice. And only you can choose. And as she rightly said in the end, choose yourself first. I love that. Thank you,
Well, it's
Sarah.
that whole self responsibility, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. That's great. So this is how it is. Definitely, Sarah has got lots of skills, talents that you can come in contact with us and we can get you connected. But also, most importantly, we will bring Sarah for the amazing work that she is doing as a coach and to all the women's listeners as well and to non-women's listeners as well. She's not just only here for women's or anything, but she is a motivational coach where anybody, any human can actually come along. As she rightly said, choosing yourself is one of the hardest thing that we have to do because there are most of the people who try to please others and there are people who try to follow others. So the choice is yours. Do you want to choose yourself first? Then everything follows. Otherwise, if you follow others, then you are ignored and you left behind. And we all have a separate, unique human journey. With that, this is Life Journey of Sarah. Sarah, thank you so much for this amazing talk and discussion. And we would definitely love to bring you back on different topics that we could uncover with you. And
Thanks so much for having me.
yeah, no, thanks very much, Sarah. Bye for now for all the listeners, but we will come back soon. And please write to us your feedback and whatever you need to ask us. Thank you. Bye bye.